Our story begins with a tale from long ago. Once upon a time, there was a famous blacksmith who owned a shop where he sold his wares. He had a vast selection of equipment, for which he received an incredible amount of money. He was once fortunate enough to collaborate with the Cairo kingdom. At that time, a war was raging, and it was an extraordinary opportunity for him to elevate his status. After the war ended, he was granted the title of Baron. This blacksmith became the owner of this land, the father of Mr. Roman. The young man sits opposite the old man, listening intently to his story. The mustached man standing behind the youth wondered why he was even paying attention to a tale that everyone knew so well. "They're taking us back a few hours," Roman remarked. "Are you telling me that he is older than the son of the family, Dmitri?" he asked. "This is the kingdom of Cairo, located on the continent of Salamander, and the world called Myram does not exist." The mustached man replied with surprise that this was true, and then wondered what had come over Roman. Although he wasn't very intelligent, this was the first time he had ever seen him like this. Was he drugged? He had heard that drugs were popular among rich kids these days, and that was likely the case. The man turned to Roman and informed him that his fiancée, a lady from the Lawrence family, was coming to visit them today. The mustached man found this entirely possible since Mr. Roman, unlike his brothers, had spent the last 25 years confined to his room. That was why he was called the fool of the Dmitri family. The man turned to Roman again, saying that Lady Lawrence valued elegance and manners, so he didn't have time to finish. Roman interrupted him, stating that there was something far more important. Then he added that the man should take him to the elder of this land. For Roman, Lady Lawrence was far less significant than understanding how to live in this world. The man looked at Roman in bewilderment, wondering why someone who had lived here his entire life would say such a thing. But what could he do? As a simple servant, he had no choice but to obey. "Understood, master," he said. "Present time." The elder said that was all he knew. Roman thanked him for his help, assuring him that he would be rewarded. The elder replied that it was an honor just to speak with him. Roman pondered his first and last name. His real name was Byung-Hyak. As a devoted follower of the Man martial arts, he had led a turbulent life. Having achieved everything he aspired to, he had accepted his death with peace. Yet, for some reason, he had awakened in the body of Roman Dmitri. Was this the will of heaven? Or was it divine punishment for not accepting ascension? Suddenly, a shout came from behind him. Someone was screaming, "You geek!" People watched in horror as a young boy was kicked in the head, his attackers shouting for him to die. The boy lay on the ground, gasping for breath, bleeding profusely. 3 men stood over him. The burly man among them sneered, calling the boy a nasty brat. Then the 3 of them began kicking him mercilessly. Roman's servant struggled to push through the fleeing crowd. His eyes locked onto the muscular man, noticing a tattoo of red fangs on his shoulder. The servant was about to say something, but then he saw his master, Roman. "Master," the servant whispered in shock. "They look like blood fangs," Roman observed. "Who are they?" The servant replied. "They're a lone shark group operating not only on the Dmitri clan's land, but also in surrounding territories. It seems the boy owes them a significant amount of money. If they've gone this far, it must be serious." The servant hesitated before suggesting, "Perhaps we should just pretend we didn't see anything." But Roman was already gone. "Stop," Roman commanded. The 3 bandits turned to him, puzzled. The servant watched in dismay as Roman slowly approached them. One of the bandits sneered. "Roman Dmitri?" He spat on the ground. The bandit scoffed. "Do you think you can do whatever you want just because you're a noble? What an idiot." Another bandit, clearly under the influence of drugs, sneered. "Listen, Roman, you better get out of here. Don't make a disgrace of yourself. Walk away before you get hurt." Roman stepped forward with a bow in hand. "Leave. Now." The servant, alarmed, whispered urgently, "Master Roman, the blood fangs are dangerous people." But Roman cut him off. "Hans," he said firmly, "I still don't know much about the laws of this world. Explain them to me." Roman, the terrifying figure, stared at Hans and then asked, "Who broke the law?" And what punishment is appropriate for them? Hans stood there, stunned. He struggled to find the right words. Since the boy couldn't repay his debt on time, it is technically his fault. However, the Bloodfangs have no right to decide his fate themselves. More importantly, they have shown disrespect to you, Roman Dmitri, the eldest son of the Dmitri clan. That is a crime punishable by death under the laws of this land. Roman smirked. Then they shall receive their rightful punishment. The bandits looked in Roman's direction with indifferent expressions. Then Roman spoke. What I heard confirms it. You broke the laws of this land. He picked up a stick on the ground and continued. That's why I, the eldest son of Lord Romero Dmitri, will deliver justice. One of the bandits scoffed. I get it. You're a nobleman who doesn't know how the world works. But you're putting us in a really difficult position. Do you even understand the situation you're in right now? The bandits began to draw their blades. Roman, however, simply smiled. This confirms everything. One of the bandits frowned. What the hell are you talking about? Roman's grin widened. You're nothing but trash, daring to speak to the lord of this land like that. With that, he charged at them, yelling that he didn't care what they were doing. The bandits were taken aback by his audacity, but one quickly shouted, Attack him! A bulky bandit swung his blade, but Roman deftly evaded it. A sharp, unimaginable pain shot to the bandit's body as blood spurted from him. He gasped for breath as the stick Roman wielded pierced through his neck. The remaining bandits froze in horror, watching their comrade helplessly clutch his throat. Master! A voice called out, worried for Roman. Another bandit swung his blade, but Roman easily dodged. He tripped the bandit and, with immense force, drove the wooden stick through his chest. The others stared in shock, unable to comprehend what was happening. Was this really their master, Roman, handling a group of bandits like they were nothing? At that moment, Beak opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was a note written by Roman and some pills scattered on the floor. The kingdom of Kira, often at war, chose a representative from each noble family and forced them to serve in the army. Roman, chosen to represent his family, had committed suicide out of fear. It was a pitiful fate. But whatever life Roman had lived before, the current owner of this body was now the Sky Demon Sect's leader, Bei Young Ha. Since he had already taken over this body, he would live as Bei Young Ha. Roman dusted off his stick, now dripping with blood, as he stood over the defeated bandits. Suddenly, he sensed something and wondered if it was a monster. Behind him, an ordinary man screamed and tried to run away. Roman grabbed him by the hair, making him fall to his knees. Let me go, the man cried. Roman stared down at him. For a group to function properly, the law must be enforced. He let out a sigh. I won't take your life, but you still have to pay. The man screamed in pain, his blood pooling on the ground. Roman then declared, My name is Roman Dmitri. The onlookers were horrified. He continued, If anyone has a problem with the punishment I gave these bandits, they're welcome to speak up. Bei Young Ha, with his overwhelming strength, had once climbed to the peak of Murim. Hundreds and thousands of masters had challenged him, only to be slaughtered. Their blood had formed rivers, and the entire world came to recognize the Sky Demon Sect as the true ruler of Murim. Roman looked down at his blood-stained hand and frowned. Why did it take so long to deal with a mere gang of bandits? He called out, Hansu, report what happened to the guards. Tell them to investigate the matter immediately. Hansu stared at Roman in a daze before nodding. Understood. He then rushed off to find the guards. Roman clenched his fists. This body is pathetic. It has almost no vital energy, and the flow is terrible. He needed to gather information and strengthen himself as soon as possible. Suddenly, someone weakly called out to him from behind. It was the young man who had been beaten by the bandits. Barely able to stand, he looked at Roman and said, Thank you for helping me. Roman scoffed. You've misunderstood. I didn't do it to help you. The Bloodfangs broke the law, so I punished them, and you're no exception. You will tell me everything. If you lie, his eyes darkened. You'll end up just like them. If you want to keep your tongue, speak the truth. The boy trembled, but then nodded. I understand. Taking a deep breath, he continued, "My parents borrowed money from the blood fawn to buy farmland. We planned to repay them easily after selling our crops. But they destroyed our fields. We had nothing left." His voice cracked with rage. "And then I found out the real reason they did it. They wanted my little sister." The boy fell to his knees, tears streaming down his face. "It's not fair. We never hurt anyone," he sobbed. "Please, at least save my little sister." Roman gazed at him, his expression unreadable. There was something about this boy's eyes. They reminded him of a mad demon, one of the 4 heavenly kings. Then he remembered he had met another mad demon in a place just as run down as this. He turned to the boy and asked, "What is your name?" The boy answered. Kevin Roman replied that all right, he would check on what he said a little later and take care of what happened. Kevin called after Roman as he left, thanking him. As he leaves, Roman wonders if it's just a feeling, but something tells him this might be their last meeting. We are taken to the carriage. Someone turns to Lady Flora and says that very soon they will arrive on the land of the Dmitri family. Flora replies, "Okay, I will soon meet him, Roman Dmitri." They're moving us back a month. Someone in the palace shouts, "A marriage of convenience with the Dmitri family." Flora's father turns to her and tells her that she must understand that their land is in a precarious position and they have no other choice. Flora is startled and thinks this simply cannot be. She will have to get married, yes, and to one of the Dmitri family. She will spend the rest of her life in the Dmitri family, which is almost entirely made up of minors. Flora turns to her father and says it's too much. Her father, not wanting to listen to her, replies that he is truly sorry that her pathetic father had to make such a decision. We are moved back a month in advance. Someone says, "Mrs. Flora, we have arrived." Flora, getting out of the carriage, thinks she should have married her second son, who has a bright future ahead of him. But apparently, even this is not destined to happen. After all, the eldest son, Roman Dmitri, forced her to marry him. He lived for his own pleasure. Why would he get so puffed up, even though she knows how bad the situation is? Still, she just can't do it. She should definitely tell him about it. Flora turns to Roman and asks him to forget about their marriage. Roman sighs heavily and says that it's fine. Flora, in shock, asks why. Roman replies that he's heard a lot about this marriage and doesn't understand how an idiot like him would even dare to marry someone like her. So, he would also like to cancel this wedding. Flora thought that Roman was serious about this, but it was very strange. Roman, leaving, says that then he will tell his father about it. Flora is frightened and asks him to wait a second. Roman turns around and asks, "What is it?" Flora runs up to him and answers that she heard Roman himself wanted her to marry him, and now Roman wants to cancel the marriage without a good reason. She's a little taken aback. Roman asks if Flora wants to marry him or not. Flora, after a little thought, replies, "Not really." Roman says that this is wonderful. They both agree to cancel the marriage. So, let this be the end of their conversation. And yes, he will take all the responsibility. She has nothing to worry about. He's already called the idiot of the Dmitri family, so it's not a big deal if a divorced person is added to it. Flora looks at Roman and wonders what is wrong with him. Did they really call him an idiot? Roman goes into his father's room. There is a slurred speech, followed by a shout that he is having an affair and should cancel the marriage. His father looks at him menacingly and then shouts that Roman is a jerk. Despite the fact that people call him the idiot of the Dmitri family, he's like a father trying to prove the opposite. A marriage with the Lawrence family is the best way for them, the Dmitri family, to secure a good position as nobility. All he needed to do was marry a noble girl, but he can't even do that. Roman bows and asks for forgiveness. His father, grabbing a glass, shouts, "Really?" Roman thinks that an apology might fix something. He then forcefully throws the glass over Roman's head. His father continues, "If everything had gone smoothly, I could have done something about your disgrace. But now, in 6 months, you will have to go to the battlefield." There's something to say to Roman. Roman starts to bleed and replies that there is nothing else. His father then says that he heard Roman had some problems with the blood fawn. The witnesses say that Roman punished them, but his father starts laughing and asks who will believe it. Surely someone helped him. The problem is that the Blood Fong is a group even he can't do anything about. Now, Roman is responsible for his own problems. As he failed to do his duty, from now on, he will sort out everything that falls on his head. His father thought that now his son would burst into tears and beg for mercy, but Roman answers that he'll handle it himself. His father, in shock, asks what had happened. Roman replies that it is all his fault, and he believes he should be held responsible for it. He'll be back as soon as everything's sorted out. His father, looking at his son, doesn't know what to say and asks him to wait, but Roman leaves his father's office. Roman then takes a napkin out of his pocket and wipes the trail of blood from his head. Flora looks at him and asks if he's crazy. Roman asks her what she's still doing here. Flora doesn't know what to say. Then she says, "It's the Blood Fong. The Blood Fong. They aren't afraid to terrorize even the nobles. If Roman somehow annoys them, they will not allow him to handle it without the help of his family. It would be fine if he just asked his father for forgiveness." Roman turned to Flora and asked why she was doing this. Flora started to say what she had planned, but Roman interrupted her and said, "Mrs. Flora, you really don't know your place." Flora looked up, startled, and then asked, "What?" "We are being transported to a rich estate." Roman indignantly says, "This is a smell." Hans, spraying perfume on him, replies that there is nothing to be done. The smell of blood is so strong on him. Roman says, "And also this suit, why is it so tight?" Hans says that since Roman is meeting Flora for the first time, he should show her some respect. Roman thought he was having a wedding, but he was just getting used to this world of marriage. Now, it will only add to the hassle. Hans told Roman that Flora would be arriving soon, so they should wait downstairs together. Roman wondered if Hans was right. There was no reason for him to disrespect a girl who hadn't caused him any trouble. He needed to find a way to break off the engagement without hurting her feelings. That was exactly what he was going to do, but it seemed like Flora wasn't going to show him any respect. This gave him even less reason to show her respect. Roman turned to Flora and said, "You're quite an arrogant person, aren't you? I know what you're getting at, and you probably didn't even consider my circumstances when it came to breaking off the engagement. But when I told you I would take full responsibility, you were worried." Flora tried to protest, but Roman interrupted her and went on to say, "From the moment the topic of breaking off the engagement came up, you had no right to interfere in my decisions." Flora stood there in shock, not knowing what to say. Roman continued, "I thought that would be the end of it." He started walking away from her in a different direction, saying, "Since our paths have diverged, we shouldn't interfere in each other's personal affairs. The only reason I said I'd take full responsibility was to prevent any talk of marriage that might arise from the breakup of the engagement, but it was also because I didn't want to have any relationship with you." Roman wondered if this was the first and last time he'd meet Flora. We are taken to a mansion where someone says, "He drinks too much, and maybe that's enough for today." Roman's father tells Vicky, his wife, that he has raised his hand against his son again. He looks into his glass and says that when they were commoners, he often chose Roman, but since they became nobles, he promised himself that this wouldn't happen again. Leona, embracing Roman's father, says that thanks to this promise, their other children have grown up to become decent people. The father replies that this is true, but Roman is the only child who went through that difficult time with him. He doesn't know how to treat Roman. Leona, kissing Roman's father, tells him not to blame himself. Despite the fact that he may not have been good enough as a parent, they are the only ones who can influence the behavior of their children. The Dmitri family that she knows isn't one to let its own son go astray. He still has a chance to make things right. Leona says that Roman is a proud child. He probably blurted it out in the heat of the moment. Romero replies that if they leave everything as it is, who knows what will happen to Roman next time. Leona asks, why not just ask Captain Jonathan to help him? Romero replies that she's right. Romero suddenly shouts for someone to come in. A servant comes running into his room, asking if his master has called him. Romero orders him to call Captain Jonathan immediately. Hans turns to Mr. Roman and says that it is too dangerous to walk around outside. They don't know when the Bloodfangs will attack, and it's so tiring. Maybe they'll come back. Roman turned around and says, Hans thinks that when the Blood Fawn gained the power it is now. Hans replies that he doesn't know. Roman says, the Blood Fawn got his notoriety when it ran away to kill his enemy. He found it in the War of those who committed a misdemeanor. Notoriety breeds fear, and fear motivates you to do what you say. Hans, not understanding what Roman was talking about, asks if the Blood Fawn is still not dangerous. Roman, smiling, replies, so far, yes, they can make him afraid. We are taken to a restaurant where there are stormy conversations going on. Someone puts food on the table and says it's the food they ordered. Hans, looking at her, glows with happiness. Roman gets up from behind his chair and tells Hans that he can stay here and eat, but he will go. Hans screams in fright, asking exactly what Roman is talking about. Roman replies that from now on, he will continue the investigation on his own. Let Hans stay here, as it is too dangerous. He gets up from the table and shouts that he won't let Roman do this. Even if he might end up in danger, he would never be able to send his master out alone. Roman looked at Hans and then asked if he was really one of his people. Hans was shocked by this question and then replied, of course, I'm one of your people. Roman said, then you should stay here. Don't sacrifice yourself unnecessarily. You've already done more than enough just by accompanying me on the street. I'll be back soon. Hans watched him go, thinking that he never expected Roman to say such a thing to him. No one could enter the tavern. The door felt jammed. Hans thought that if this wasn't the time, he would have to tell them everything. We are taken to Roman, who is walking down the street. Thinking that if there's one thing he's learned about the Blood Fangs in the last few days, it's that their powers are very strong. But since they work in small groups, tracking them down is problematic. Perhaps they don't show themselves because they are afraid of the consequences if they fail to kill him, a leader sitting in the shadows. If he can't find them by himself, he just needs to make them come to him. Roman was walking the streets with Hans on purpose. They probably already knew where he was. On top of that, today is the day of regular night training, and because of that, the number of guards on the street has been greatly reduced. This means that if they plan to take revenge on him, this is the perfect chance. 3 robed thugs stood behind Roman, immediately drawing their knives. One of them lunged, shouting that this was Blood Fawn's revenge. Roman stood motionless. Hans ran to the captain and shouted at him. Captain Jonathan turned, and the captain quickly ran up to Hans and asked what was wrong. Hans began to breathe heavily. The captain told Hans to calm down and tell him what had happened. Hans, catching his breath, said, the young master. Let the captain find him immediately. Roman is in danger. Roman calmly grabbed the hand with the knife and shoved his elbow into the attacker's stomach. The bandit told Roman that he was Roman, but Roman twisted his arm, so he couldn't hold the blade anymore. Then Roman grabbed the knife himself and pierced the thug's chest. The bandit, leaving bloody footprints on the floor, slowly began to step back, and then he fell. 2 of his comrades behind him shouted, "What the—" They looked at Roman in fright and shouted, "What's going on?" "This isn't what we heard at all." Roman smiled and asked, "Why are you all standing still? Come at me." He gestured with his hand, taunting them. The captain asked Hans what he wanted to say. That young Master Roman went into the city without guards to fight the Blood Fangs? Hans shouted. The captain and his charge looked at each other in silence. Then the captain laughed and shouted, "This can't be happening. Probably Hans is joking." Hans nervously interrupted the captain and said that it was true. "Why would I lie about such a thing? We don't have time. We need to hurry." The captain thought, remembering Romero's words about Roman and the Blood Fawn having a big fight, and asking the captain to help him. But once the master also asked him to do so, the captain scratched the back of his head, and then said, why did he go there in the first place if he couldn't even hold a gun properly? He ordered his knights to prepare their weapons immediately, and then he told Hans to take them to a place where the young master might be. Hans replied, and the captain went on to say, "As long as we're around, the Blood Fangs won't dare touch him." The captain wondered if what Hans had said was true. Then Roman is really an idiot. We are transported to the bandits, who are looking at their dying comrade. Roman asks, "Why did you stop dead in your tracks?" The bandits look at him in fright. Roman, smiling, tells him to come at him. The bandits clenched their teeth and shouted that Roman was rushing into battle. They shouted for Roman to die as they raised their blades. One of them lunged, but Roman dodged. Then he plunged a blade into the thug's stomach. The bandit's comrade, seeing this, shouted that Roman was a scumbag. Then he leapt on top of him, swinging his blade. But Roman managed to jump back and kick the bandit in the stomach. The bandit flew a couple of meters away from him. Roman slowly approached the bandit lying on the floor and asked, "What's this all about?" The bandit, doubting that if Roman killed him, he would never be safe again, answered, to which Roman said seriously, "But I've already killed 2, haven't I?" Bandits can only talk with their tongues. Roman swung his blade and said that it would be better for the bandit to answer wisely when he was asked. He stabbed the knife into the man's leg. The man screamed in agony, and then Roman asked, "Who's your leader?" We are taken to a certain street where people are walking, and then we see a bar where fun conversations are actively being conducted. One of the people was saying something while raising his mug. But suddenly he noticed something. Roman was walking in front of them, his clothes dirty and his hand covered in blood. The bartender turned around and wanted to say welcome, but when he noticed Roman, he stopped. Then he said, "Hello, young master," and Roman returned the bartender's greeting. A whisper went around the bar. "This is Roman Dmitri. Why has he come here? Is he really looking for someone?" The bartender asked what Roman would order. Roman said, "Tear of Dawn, please." The bartender apologized and said they didn't have that, but maybe they could recommend something else. Roman sighed and then said, "Okay, have them pour me something stronger. I have some work to do in the morning." The bartender and several people sitting in the hall looked at Roman in surprise. Roman continued, "So, I want some drinks, maybe the Tear of Dawn. This pub is in the middle of the street where they get their orders." The bandit went on to say that they give them a task if they call a special code. Roman asked what the code was. The bandit replied, "Tear of Dawn, something stronger in the morning for work." At this, everyone in the pub tensed. The bartender then said something unbeknownst to Roman. He pulled out a knife from behind the counter, swung it, and shouted for everyone to attack. But a fist suddenly flew into his face, and at the same time, the bartender collapsed. Everyone in the pub pulled out knives and swords, shouting that Roman was a beast and needed to be killed. Someone shouted for the guards, and a man flew out, knocking down the door. Roman used his bare hands to take down one bandit after another. 2 men were standing in front of him, and one of them asked, "What happened?" Roman instantly laid out 3 of them. "This is definitely Roman," they all muttered. Roman thought this was the greatest technique in mirror. It allowed him to increase his strength by constantly breathing in a tiny amount of time. The heavenly demon had strengthened Roman's body with martial arts. She didn't look anything like her old self anymore. There was only one novel here. There were more of them. Roman smiled and thought that these people were nothing but trouble. Suddenly, someone woke up and asked, "What happened?" Roman replied that the bartender had just been in time. Roman slowly approached him and said that he was just about to finish. The bartender asked what the young gentleman was doing here, since he was the first one to decide to attack him. It seems they were here alone. Roman said that he was interested in something, and the bartender looked at him with a frightened face and a huge bruise on his nose. Roman invited him to chat. The captain called out, looking at the large number of unconscious bandits. He asked, "Was it really the young master who did this?" Suddenly, one of the soldiers shouted to the captain that there was a survivor on the 2nd floor and that the young master was heading toward Lawrence. The captain, not understanding, asked why. The soldier replied that the survivor had told him that the Blood Fong's main base was in Lawrence and